The greatest strategic failure in modern marketing is software sprawl. This belief that more tools lead to more power, while ignoring the neurological fact that complexity is the ultimate speed tax on your team. We've all been sold this myth, right? That the next piece of software, the next subscription, is going to be the thing that finally unlocks our growth. Well, today, we're going to tear that myth apart, piece by piece, and show you how the very tools that are supposed to save us are often the ones holding us back. So, let me ask you this. Is your software killing your speed? Because here's the central paradox we all face. We invest in these tools with the absolute best intentions. We want to move faster, get an edge, grow the business. But what if that huge software budget is actually the anchor weighing your entire team down? This is what we call the software savior complex. We just keep adding tools, hoping one of them is the magic bullet. But instead, all we're really doing is adding layers of complexity, more logins, more integrations. And that becomes the #1 reason we can't execute things quickly. And this leads to a really crucial concept, the speed tax. Now, this isn't just about the money on your profit and loss statement. It's a neurological tax, and your team pays it every single day. Every time someone has to open a new tab, remember another password, or manually export a CSV from one tool just to upload it to another, a tiny toll is paid. It's a tax on their focus, their creative energy, and their momentum. The answer isn't another tool. It's about strategically collapsing your tech stack down to its powerful, efficient, functional core. Okay, so to get there, we're going to follow a very clear path. First, we'll dig into the software savior paradox and figure out how we even got here. Then, we'll uncover the true hidden costs of all this complexity. After that, I'm going to lay out the blueprint for fixing it, the functional core architecture. Then, we'll get into the fascinating psychology that makes this whole system work. And finally, we'll give you the exact steps to achieve this state of high-speed performance in your own organization. So let's dive into the core problem here. The software savior paradox is this really seductive belief that technology is the answer to every single one of our problems. Need more leads? Hey, there's a tool for that. Want better analytics? Just buy another dashboard. But this approach, it doesn't lead to power. It leads to a kind of rot from the inside out, where our teams are just drowning in a sea of disconnected point solutions. What all this sprawl ends up creating is a state of total data chaos. Just imagine your marketing manager for a second. They're trying to figure out why last month's big campaign didn't hit its numbers. Well, the click data is in the ad platform, the heat maps are in another tool, the conversion data is in the e-commerce backend, and customer feedback is in yet another system. They spend half their day just trying to stitch that story together. This isn't just an inconvenience. It literally kills the contextual awareness your team needs to make smart, fast decisions. But look, this isn't just some abstract, theoretical problem. The costs are very, very real, and they go way beyond the monthly subscription fees. The cost of complexity is a real, quantifiable drain on your team's most valuable resources, their time, their focus, and their creative energy. It's the silent killer of team morale and momentum. And what's really shocking is the sheer scale of the waste. Studies show that marketing teams can spend up to 30% of their week on something called maintenance labor. That isn't creating campaigns or analyzing results. No, it's stuff like troubleshooting why the zap between your lead form and your CRM suddenly broke again. It's manually uploading a list of 100 new leads. Think about that. That's more than a full day, every single week, for every single person on your team, lost to just managing the software that was supposed to make them more productive. So this really shows the two worlds that are created by your tech choices. Over on the left, you've got the fragmented workflow. We call it the best-in-class headache, where every new tool just adds another layer of friction, and you get painfully slow execution. On the right, that's the goal, a unified system with a single source of truth. Here, data just flows. The team has real execution power. They're confident, they're fast, they're focused. This is the world of high velocity. So, how do we get from that messy world on the left to that streamlined world on the right? The answer isn't a new app or some quick tip. It's a new operational model for auditing and simplifying your technology. This is the functional core architecture, and it's the blueprint for reclaiming your team's velocity. Now, this architecture is built on a simple, but frankly, pretty ruthless 3-step cut-first filter. First up, we launch a redundancy strike, where we hunt down every tool with overlapping features. Second, we do an integration tax audit, identifying any tool that's basically an isolated island, creating data friction. And third, we apply the utility pillar test, where every single piece of software has to justify its existence by proving it's directly linked to generating revenue. Let's dig into that first step for a second, because it's powered by a critical mental model, the 80-20 software rule. The logic here is really profound. It is almost always better to have one integrated platform that does 80% of what you need than it is to bolt on a perfect, specialized tool that does 100% of one little task, but creates yet another data silo. For example, if your main CRM has a pretty good landing page builder, you cut your separate, specialized landing page tool. You're making a strategic trade. You give up a few bells and whistles for a massive gain in speed and data integrity. Okay, but to really master this system, we have to understand the psychology behind it. This isn't just about technology, it's about how our brains are actually wired. The reason this framework is so powerful is because it's grounded in some fundamental principles of cognitive science. The core principle here is something called cognitive load reduction. See, our brains have a finite amount of bandwidth, and every time a team member has to switch between different software interfaces with their own unique layouts and logic and workflows, they pay a mental switching cost. It breaks their flow and it drains their mental energy. By collapsing your stack into a single unified workspace, you just eliminate that cost. You directly improve your team's focus, their creativity, and their performance. Of course, one of the biggest psychological hurdles to simplifying is the sunk cost fallacy. This is that little deceptive whisper in your head that says, oh, we can't get rid of this software. We've already spent thousands of dollars in 3 months getting it set up. But that's an emotional trap, not a logical argument. It prioritizes past expenses you can't get back over your team's future velocity. Just recognizing this fallacy is the first step to making rational, forward-looking decisions for your team. And all of this brings us to a fundamental truth. The most powerful tool in your entire business isn't a piece of software, it's not a platform or an algorithm. It is the collective, uninterrupted focus of your team. Every single decision you make about your tech stack should be in service of protecting and enhancing that focus. All right, so now that we get the why, let's talk about the how. We need to translate these principles into a clear, actionable framework for implementation, for mastery, and for measurement. This is where the theory becomes your team's new reality.
Your path to mastery really comes down to 3 core actions. First, you have to execute a tool-to-task audit. You map every single piece of software you pay for to one of 3 revenue pillars: traffic, conversion, or retention. If a tool doesn't serve one of those, it gets cut. Simple as that. Second, apply the 1 in, 2 out rule. To keep that discipline, for every new tool you decide to bring in, you have to eliminate 2 existing ones. And third, and this is the most important one, you have to start measuring operational lead time. Track how long it takes to go from an idea to a live campaign. That becomes your new North Star metric for success.
And the results of this discipline, they can be absolutely staggering. Teams that really commit to this framework can see increases in their campaign launch speed of 150% or even more. Now, stop and think about what that actually means. It means you can launch 3 campaigns in the time it used to take you to launch just 1. You're tripling your rate of learning. You are literally running circles around competitors who are still stuck fighting their own software. This is the ultimate goal. We call it operational velocity. It's that state where the software fog, that mental clutter created by having too many tools, has finally lifted. Your team is no longer bogged down by a dozen different interfaces or distracted by 1,000 features they never even use. You have consciously, strategically traded feature density for pure execution power. Your team becomes fast, aligned, and incredibly focused. So if you take only one thing away from our time together, let it be this. This is the core insight of this entire philosophy. Your technology stack should be a servant to your strategy, not the other way around. You've reached mastery when your strategy commands a lean, powerful, and obedient set of tools that are designed for one thing, and one thing only: speed. And that brings us to our final thought. The best marketing doesn't just push people through some rigid funnel, it actually pulls them toward genuine value. And it can only do that consistently and at scale when the machine behind it all, your team, your processes, and your tech, is lean and fast. Simplicity isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's the ultimate engine of growth.